Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Daphne Lage here. Join Nita Lanning and me on the Rage Into the Vlogs show, where we talk about everything, nothing, and all the bits in between. Looking for hour-long conversations about indie comics, social media marketing, and crowdfunding, with the occasional rant and story time? Head on over to the Rage Into channel on YouTube, Mondays through Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern to join in the chat.
Hit the button.
Ed Gein, Demon Hunter, on Indiegogo. After a deranged demon escapes the bowels of hell, Satan is forced to send a damned soul back to Earth as a demon hunter. Armed with a sacrificial dagger, Ed returns to his old stomping ground to capture the demon before the universe is destroyed. Ed Gein, Demon Hunter. Issues 1 and 2 available now on Indiegogo. Prepare for the ultimate face-off.
We've crossed paths more than once. I've whispered in your ear, shown you harmless little temptations. I am unknowable, yet you know me intimately. But you can always know me better. Collected here are 20 twisted tales that will thrill, chill, incite, and delight you from some of the most imaginative minds your species has to offer. This exclusive Indiegogo printing of The Devil You Know Better will be limited and numbered, with signatures from Mike Barron and Hart D. Fisher. Stretch goals achieved for this campaign will add interior chapter illustrations by Stefano Cardacelli. The Devil You Know Better. Back it on Indiegogo today, while you still can.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, Myopic Proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, and I do answer the phones now and then for Critical Blast Consulting. And it is dark. Let me see if I can't put a little LED on the subject here. There we go. Brightens that picture up. Oh, wait, that's just I might have been better in the dark. I get it. Okay. Wow, it seems like horror is back if those last two trailers were anything to judge from. Granted, one of them's ours, so we have a little bit of control over that. And we do hope that you will sign up for the pre-launch of The Devil You Know Better, going live this Monday, 6/6 at 6 Greenwich Mean Time. So we will be launching that live with the good folks from the CG UK Bargain Bin. We'll hope to see you there. That'd be like 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So you guys are up. There's no excuse. But delving into a little bit more horror tonight. We're going over to Indiegogo for a crowdfunding with some familial connections, and we're going to talk about that a little bit because I think that makes this book extremely interesting. You know him from Downcast, you know him from Sweetcast. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Clint Stoker.
Hello, hello.
This is where everybody goes. I literally expected that, like I had that sound effect. I'm like, wait, it's just me. What am I doing?
Hey, it's good to be with you again. I think it's been about a year since we streamed last.
I would probably, yeah.
I was looking and I realized, it was June 1st last year that I launched Downcast 3. It's kind of crazy. That went fast.
It did. And I feel like there's been more Downcast since then because they've been cut up and put out through Alterna, which how's that working out for you?
So far, so good. It's been, honestly, a big part of it has just been, hey, I want to try to reach as many readers as possible. And so having that super low price point, low investment for someone to get into it has been really nice. I've had several people reach out and say, hey, I got your #1 issue. Now I'm down for a crowdfunded series, now that I tried it out. So it's pretty fun. And it also just, it's a matter of pride. It's to be an Alterna creator. So that's fun too.
To go into a comic shop and there you are on a shelf now with your crowdfunded book. If you go in the right shop, you got to go into the shops with taste to order from Alterna.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could tell I knew in advance that it was going to sell well because it had a reputation behind it already, which is why I hijacked it for when we put in advertisements. We advertised in a couple of the Downcast issues. And in fact, we're advertising in the one coming up this current campaign. I don't know whether it's spring or winter. It's seasons make no sense when you're crowdfunding.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
We got some folks in the chat here. Infinity, that would be Alejandro. Hello to you, sir. Mike Walters has been here, liked and shared the live stream. Appreciate that. Mike goes live in an hour with the mic stand. Hope that you'll pop over there and catch the niche news of the day afterwards. Herman P. Hunter, I don't know what we're discussing, but I blame Twitter for it. Well, this is going to be fun because we talked, and I don't know if you talked with me about it or if you talked with other people first, but the family name was Stoker, and someone said, I think it was might have even been Ethan Van Sciver, said you should do a Dracula book.
I've been writing because I started with novels too, which it looks like you're doing a novel, and people have been, it's like one of those things ever since I was in elementary school, or not elementary, but like junior high, and Dracula was on the reading list. People would make the connection. Oh, you're Bram Stoker, and so it had been this thing that I would dismiss all the time, but when enough people ask for it, I think maybe there's something here. So I gave it a try.
Yeah, but the joke became truth, didn't it? I mean, somewhere along the way, you actually went through the ancestry and found that there was a familial connection back to him. How did that work out? How'd that play out?
It's ridiculous, actually. Even more ridiculous than I laugh because I'm not the first author to say, oh, I'm writing Dracula and I'm a descendant. There was some other guy that wrote a novel, and I don't even remember his first name, but he was a Stoker. No relation to me that I know of, because I'm actually, my Stoker line does not connect to Bram Stoker's line. I'm related through my mother's side. So it is ridiculous. So we're 11th cousins 4 times removed.
Okay, but so your mom, who's not a Stoker, was related to Bram Stoker. So it wasn't, hey, if it's in the family tree and you can draw a line, you claim it. It's good.
Yep.
Good to go. You know what that means. If you trace it far enough and find out, it really means that probably your mom and dad were like 18th and a half cousins 4 times removed or something.
It could be. Yeah, you get on one of those like ancestry sites, and it's kind of amazing how much mingling there is. Yeah. And I don't know, it is what it is.
And then you find the mythological ancestry, which is treated as fact. And because my mother's side came over from Ireland with the Cathcarts, and I traced all that back, and then I got into Scotland, back to Isabella Bruce, which was the sister to Robert the. So So that was kind of cool. But then there's like all these kings of Ireland. And of course, at the time, if you were a king in Ireland, it meant you had a hill with a cave dug into it that you're just like, this is mine, stay away.
Yeah.
But they took real good care to keep track of where they came from for family lineage purposes and proof of everything. And it was, I got back to Adam and I said, okay, I'm done. I quit. I've won the ancestry game. But how accurate is that? Everybody gets on Ancestry and like, hey, look, I'm related to Marilyn Monroe and Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Because somebody else's tree shows this.
Yep.
That's what you're relying on. Looks like Herman Hunter's got a show as well. Cthulhu Bunnies. Oh, that sounds interesting. Another show that you might want to hit up and promote on that show there with Herman Hunter. 10 o'clock tonight Eastern. So the six degrees of Bela Lugosi. Yes. Referring, I guess, to the 11th cousin line there.
Yeah.
So had you thought before about ever doing a Dracula book?
I would think about it from time to time because the thing that inevitably happens is you think about, should I do a public domain character? And that'll come up a lot. If you should make the dive, or if it's just a terrible idea to do public domain. And I always thought if I did public domain, it would have to be Dracula just for the sake of the gimmick. But, I didn't really know. I came up with a few concepts for Dracula before I settled on this particular story. And the first one was just like, hey, I'm going to do a really short story, Ashcan, that's just going to be just fun, really, really short. And then, my chat was like, no, don't do that. We want you to take it seriously and make it its own thing. Make it something notable. So I went back to the drawing board and came up with a bigger story. And totally different direction from what I started from. But it's been really fun to just write horror.
Now, just going from some of the pictures I've seen here, and I particularly love this one where he's bent over the goblet here. Somebody's drained behind him. He's sitting on a couch.
Yeah.
This looks very modern.
Yeah. So it does take place in modern days. So it is a modern take on Dracula. But when you go into Dracula's mansion, it is almost like stepping back in time because his wives all dress in the Victorian era clothing, and it's very bizarre. So I would say with Kelsey Shannon, he asked me a couple questions. He's the type of guy that he'll just come to you and he'll say, I have an idea for a Dracula piece. Can I do a cover for you, a trading card or something? And I was like, we already have 2 covers figured out, artists for those, but you could do a trading card. And then he turned this in, and it was inspired from American Psycho. That was kind of the bent that he took with it, and it just turned out so great that I was like, well, okay, that's going to be a cover. So we have the cover there. It captures a great mood of the story. I think the other cover from Eric Canetti captures the aesthetics more closely, but it is a modern take, and I love that both these covers are such a completely different take on Dracula.
Now, this being the obviously this is the full cover, the full PDF. That spine looks pretty thick.
Yeah.
How big is this book?
So the main story is 50 pages total. There's 56 pages. It's nice paper, but when you're dealing with hardcover, it makes that spine a little bit bigger. So yeah, we're actually doing a hardcover version.
That's right.
So that'll be
hardcover is a lot bigger.
Yeah.
A lot
That's my
heavier,
first
too.
hardcover.
So this is a fully contained story, or the first of some more to come?
It's fully contained. You'll probably be leaving with some questions, but it is horror, and so that's kind of the point. Is I have a few questions I want to leave the reader with to get their imagination going. But it's a one and done story. I don't have plans to continue the Dracula story, but I did think it would be fun to do other classic horror monsters like Clint Stoker's Frankenstein or Clint Stoker's Invisible Man, or and go through the list like that and do a
Yeah.
collection of stories. But
You could also do the other, the other Stoker stories. You could do Clint Stoker's Lair of the White Worm,
it's true.
and things like that. Just to, if you wanted to stick with the branding,
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
trope of Stoker doing Stoker. Is this story in any way a continuation of the Bram Stoker novel, or is this a readaptation in a modern setting of the things that happened? Like, Renfield would be dead if you are continuing, but if you're adapting, then you can have a more modern madman serving as his second-hand person.
Yeah, it's quite a departure. It doesn't take place in the same universe as Bram Stoker's Dracula, so there are a lot of nods to the original and just a lot of little things that I found interesting from the novel that you don't really hear about in pop culture much, but I put them in the book, elements of it. So this is more like if Dracula, just continued on, and now here he is in 2022 and meeting all new John Harker, who is also a lawyer. And a couple character, mixing up a couple characters. But it's pretty fun. We've got Quincy in here as well. And so, yeah, a lot of the characters, a lot of the elements, but then I also had to come up with a bunch of new elements to make it horror, because when the cat's already out of the bag, you already know all of these tropes that come from Dracula now.
Yeah.
They lose their power, so I had to come up with some new things to build tension, and that was really fun to do.
So, given that, when was the original Dracula written? I want to say 1800 something, but it could be older than that, I think.
I think it's 1800. I think it's the late 1800s.
Okay, so I played in this universe before of using public domain characters. My first published novel was Alice's Journey Beyond the Moon, and we played that as though Lewis Carroll had written it, and I was just doing the annotations on it. Very, very much a tightrope walk, because you've got like the Lewis Carroll Society looking at things like this and like, oh, how's this author going to mangle our favorite beloved author?
Yeah.
Wasn't a wild hero with them, but I kind of passed muster where I wasn't a villain either. But you're going to obviously run into that at some point when the Dracula fans say, oh, look, another retelling of the Dracula line. But what I was trying to get the date for was, I know that because of the book that I did, Lewis Carroll was doing photography in the 1850s. It was a burgeoning hobby. And I don't remember the book well enough to know if vampires didn't show up in pictures. I knew they didn't show up in mirrors. They didn't reflect. This is a long way of me getting around to asking you, do vampires show up on cell phones?
Technically, yes, they do. So yeah, I guess I would think that because they're digital, there's no mirror involved. That's my reasoning. But yeah, they could absolutely show up on cell phones in my Dracula. There are a few things like the garlic and the crosses and like all that stuff still exists. Did you know that to kill a vampire, it's not just a stake through the heart? There's a whole ritual. You have to stab them through the heart. You have to remove their head and fill their mouth full of garlic, and that's in the original. So
it'll come back. The original was I've read it. I've read it a couple of times actually, but it was so epistolary because so much of it is Jonathan Harker writing letters to Mina, and it's almost like he's it's almost like he's writing this letter as he's running down the hallway and scaling the wall of the castle to get away. It's like, no, it's like, and they're chasing me right now, Mina.
Yeah, it's funny that book got roasted by critics when it first came out. It was 1897, and it got roasted for a few reasons, but the concepts that Bram Stoker put together clearly stood the test of time. It is crazy when you think about it. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting because Dracula the novel it's kind of boring. it's slow,
It is.
Very
slow.
And it's a product of its time, but what I tried to do, it's a comic book, so I also want to make it visually interesting and exciting. And so I tried to do a slow burn horror to stay true to Dracula, but I don't have the letters. It is very much like it gets you right into the story, right into the action. So the pacing is much faster, but there are elements of, I just tried to really lean into the dread of what is coming. So that's been, I don't know, it was super interesting from a writing perspective, and looked a lot at modern horror films and how, I could capture that, especially in comics. There's different things that work and don't work versus television and film. So I don't know, it was really interesting.
Bianca Fights the Zombies is here saying stuff. Said it was a deserved roasting because it was a great concept, just poorly executed. And Herman's saying that stabbing them through the heart just keeps them pinned so that you can do that other stuff. I'm always reminded when it's wooden stake through the heart of a Batman story that I read when I was in 6th grade, which would be 1978. No, 77, because Star Wars came out that same year. But there was a Batman fighting a vampire story, and the vampire was modern vampire. He'd recently been turned, and he was a heart surgeon when he was a human being. And Batman stabs him through the heart, and the vampire just laughs, pulls out, says, "Yeah, that ain't gonna work anymore." And the fight went on, and as I recall, Batman's got this wooden arrow, and he's getting ready to shoot this vampire again, and the vampire says, "Didn't you learn anything?" And as they're fighting, and as the action keeps moving and getting more frenetic, the grandfather clock is ticking louder and louder and louder, and Batman shoots the clock because he figures out that the vampire had removed his heart and put it in the clock.
Oh, that's clever.
I guess it works with the vampire trope. It's well, you didn't stab him through the heart and shove his mouth full of garlic. You just moved the heart somewhere else.
That's so comic book though. That's the essence of superhero comics. I love it.
It's like a Horcrux now. It's just let's find it and kill it. So this being a modern Dracula, he's still got his castle, as you said, with the Victorian wives, multiple wives as he had. Is this then not being told in the United States, but being told in Black Forest or that area of Transylvania?
Yeah, so he's an immigrant from that area. So he says he's Romanian, and so he's an immigrant. He lives in the U.S. And I just figured he would be. I mean, if you were Dracula today, you would be extremely powerful, but very well kept secret. And the biggest conclusion I kept drawing was Jeffrey Epstein, and there are probably a few others as well, but they're predatory, in nature. They're extremely rich, and it's do we know much about them? Especially, a few years ago, he was an enigma. So yeah. To me, that was so much of what I drew off of for Dracula's character. So yeah, I tried to ground it more to, familiar modern day setting. There's so many ways I could have approached Dracula, but this one just felt right. It felt the most interesting to me.
Well, one of the things that persists in vampire stories, beginning with Dracula and carrying on through, the sparkly ones and all the other stories, is this gothic erotica. In that, it's he's a blood drinking, throat ripping monster, but please take me.
Yeah.
Is that an element that you keep in your book, and how do you account for it being something that overrides the survival instinct?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's he's charismatic, and he's so charismatic that it doesn't really make sense. It's like he's cast a spell over women in particular, but he I don't know, to me that was it was a nightmare I had a long time ago of me trying to explain to my wife, hey, this dude or these group of people, they're bad dudes, and my wife just doesn't see it, and she's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? You're crazy. And so it's that gaslighting effect. So I did some research on sociopaths, because they do the same kinds of things, and it's almost like magic, how they can convince people and manipulate people to do what they want. And so there's elements of that. Obviously it's a comic book and I want to keep it interesting and the pace moving, but those same moments of just, it's very real, like changing the minds of people around you, and you're like, am I the crazy, who's crazy here? So yeah, I don't think it's actually that far away from what humans are capable of, which is interesting. And it takes, a special kind of person. But again, Jeffrey Epstein's one of those people, can be very charismatic, convince people, very powerful people to do what he wanted until he had some kind of control over them, leverage. And those are the same tactics that Dracula uses.
And remember, folks, when you get to the end of the book, Dracula didn't kill himself.
Yeah, no, he did not.
This is an Indiegogo campaign, and I say that, despite obviously we're looking at it, but you've had several videos now in the past where you've talked about expanding your market and going to Kickstarter, and you've had a lot of pushback on that. You've had a lot of support on that. I'm like, go where the money is. Why leave any money on the table? And I don't care about the ideological hithers and thithers of it. Because everyone who says don't always has that hypocritical exception. So, but given that, why didn't you start this on Kickstarter?
I mean, nothing changes the fact that I've already launched so many campaigns on Indiegogo, so that's where my base is. And to like emphasize that, my base, like people that are backing my books. And that might be, I realize there's a lot of crossover between so many creators, but at the end of the day, when I think about it, it's who is backing my books. And that's not always people on Twitter or wherever else. It's the people in my campaigns. And so started there and try to cater to those readers, because that is what has worked for me in the past. I'm not saying I'll never use Kickstarter. It seems inevitable that everybody's going to be using Kickstarter at some point. I don't really want to be the first person to do that. I know that there are a lot of people that want to, but it's going to happen all around. I am sure of it. I'll guarantee it. Almost.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first. I didn't do a Kickstarter simply because the interface for a new guy like me doing a crowdfund compared to the Indiegogo is like, oh, the Indiegogo just paste this stuff in. I'm done. We're in. We're good.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. It was easy. My concern, not for you, but in the overall scheme of things, is that there's a pattern here where I see people, they'll start on Kickstarter, they'll run their 30 days, then they'll go to Indiegogo and they'll transfer all the funds over, which is fine, and then they'll do Indiegogo for 30 and in demand. And that's a working model. Kara Nicole does that. She makes oodles of money on her books. Other people have followed that model. My concern for that is when a third entity rises up as a crowdfunding engine, and it's popular. I'm not talking about like Zoop or some of these others that are kind of out there, but they're just on the fringes. But another powerhouse, another pillar of crowdfunding, that it's going to slow down production while we jump from Kickstarter to Indiegogo and now over to option 3 or 4. Now we crowdfunded for a year and a half because we're hitting all the bus stops.
I have a concern with that too, because I've been trying to drastically cut down production time as it is. Part of that is getting books produced ahead of time before you launch the campaign. It's not always a good idea. I mean, it's massively risky. And so, production time is important to me, because ultimately, the way I view it, I want to compete with every other comic book out there, independent or big too. I want to be able to be making stuff that stands with those books. And part of the edge that many companies have is they have books done and out to people. People are actually reading the books instead of just talking about a campaign, and that is an edge. So I think cutting down the production time to be able to get the book out faster is important. If I did things in my perfect world, it would be launching on Indiegogo, getting the book printed quickly soon after, ship it out to all the Indiegogo backers, and then launch it on Kickstarter when the book's finished already. And I have, you have to do something different, but my understanding is it could be a trading card, it could be a bookmark, really minor things. So then launch it on Kickstarter, make it available to that audience, and let them have it. Again, I have no plans to do that right now. I just think to stay competitive, that is exactly what's happening. The people that are really crushing it, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. See now that's antithetical to the direction that I see things going, because Kickstarter, you do have a limited lifespan, and Indiegogo, you can go into that in demand. To go the other direction means you would have to finitely end Indiegogo so that you could do the limited campaign on Kickstarter, and then you definitely are over. You're no longer in demand where people can go to. But is there life after the death of Clint Stoker's Dracula? I mean, are you going to take this hardcover and cut it into 4 pieces and go through Alterna with floppies or something?
Well, never say never, but I can tell you right now, Alterna, one of the main things, I think it's on his submission guidelines that Peter puts out, is that he doesn't do public domain characters. So that was a big factor, in the decision making of should I do a Dracula book, knowing that it's not going to go through Alterna. I've been offered publication deals in the past for other books that I've done crowdfunders for. Sometimes those deals didn't make any sense. So I don't know. Right now, I'm just thinking about getting it out to backers, this initial campaign, and then I'm open, but I think it's probably going to be this campaign. It's going to be a pretty special book to have for those backers, and we'll see. I can't make too many plans. It's too expensive to print books in multiple versions unless it's something you really want to get into. So
especially hardcovers.
Yeah,
because the one we're doing right now is it's an anthology book. So hey, 20 other guys wrote this. All I have to do is edit and put it together and pay for it and pay them and do the legwork and the marketing. Yeah, okay. All I have to do is that. But it's already available on Amazon. The paperback is out. We're just doing a limited signed and numbered hardcover with and heart, and with the art interior in it that won't be in the paperback collection. But going through the printing of that, I was going to ask you, is your hardcover, and I don't know if you're going through Kablam or some other entity that does hardcover graphic novels, is it going to be dust jacketed, or is it going to be printed right on the book, or both?
It's going to be printed right on. There's a possibility that we could hit a stretch goal and do a dust jacket, but we already have the book at the printer, so the files are all in and everything. It's formatted for directly on the hardcover. And you've seen a lot of books. I'm using API, so the same printer that's been doing a ton of hardcover comic books that you've seen in crowdfunding campaigns the past few years. So they're quality books. They can do dust jackets. It would be, I think that it'd have to be a stretch goal, and I'd have to hit it pretty quickly because things are already, the press is moving. So,
well, something like this as well. I don't know that I like dust jackets, I guess, but I take them off the books so frequently because they get damaged so quickly. Even just leaving them on the shelf. For something like this, I would think a slipcase would be something that people would go for, especially a coffin designed one or something.
Yeah, there could be some awesome slipcases. I've seen some great ones. So yeah, absolutely. That would be a ton of fun. I'd have to get pricing on it, but right now we really got to get this probably about 25,000 to start looking at bigger, expensive stretch goals.
Sure.
But it's been a solid start. We still have a long time to go. So
yeah, plenty of time. And I mean, was this a 60-day campaign or a 40-day campaign? How did you start this?
40-day. I did 40-day for the last Downcast campaign, and I don't know. It just seemed right. I don't think it matters all that much, honestly.
I just refreshed it to see if anything had happened. So far, I have done nothing for you.
We're in the mid campaign, so this is the grind right now.
Yeah, this is the dry gulch of campaign funding. Yeah, marketing and promotion. Yeah, that's a cinch. Yeah, you just go on shows every single night, sometimes 3 times a night. So let's look at the campaign because we've had it up here for a while. And we haven't scrolled down any. You got Donald DeLay doing the artwork. You've got Eric Weathers on the editor letters.
Yeah.
Kelsey and Eric. These are all known quantities. People who've been, backing in Comicsgate or just crowdfunding in general. They know all these people. So
yep,
it's an all-star cast.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been. I mean, the covers came together super nicely. I got really lucky on getting both Eric Canetti and Kelsey Shannon to do those covers. They're fantastic. Donald DeLay on the artwork. He did such a great job with it. He was a delight to work with. So we went with the black and white interior pages. That was a very careful decision. I kept going back and forth. The more I thought about it, I was like, it needs to be black and white because of, part of the inspiration for the story was some of those, the woodblock art of Vlad the Impaler. And there's something really creepy about how cartoony, Vlad the Impaler is represented in those images. And so we went with a very stylized look, black and white. And obviously it's not, it's not completely patterned after the woodblock, but it still has that vibe. It's cartoony, but it's unsettling.
Yeah, I mean, if I were throwing out brainstorming ideas at the time that you were putting it all together, I'd say, yeah, black and white, but red when it needs to be red. In place. Spot red. But just because it's Dracula and there's blood.
Yeah, we considered that too. I thought maybe it's overdone because there's a few books out there that do that. But yeah, it was really a tough decision.
So these look like his 4 wives.
Yeah, there's 4 here with him. He went out on the town, night out on the town with his ladies. When they go back to his mansion, he's got several more, and so it gets a little weird when John Harker and Nina and Quincy go back to his mansion.
And of course, for Dracula, wives are just blood sources. He doesn't have to deal with all that other stuff that goes with having wives. It's like, okay, I'm full. Go back to bed. Go to your room.
Yeah. I love what it says about him too, that he is above social norms. He's above the law. He's he's not afraid. He'll go out to a fancy restaurant, with multiple wives. He doesn't care. And then also just the power he has over women. So I loved that from the first novel because it just said so much about him as a character. And I think it's even more so today than it would have been in the late 1800s. So
yeah. Now he's going out to restaurants. What's he ordering?
In this case, he doesn't order anything. But he has a special place in his heart for Romanian cuisine. So he does serve some Romanian cuisine at his mansion, but it's a tool for him. Like everything is control. So yeah, he's thinking ahead. He's doing what he needs to do to make appearances. But yeah, ultimately he's got one goal, and that's to feed.
Yeah, because he's got a restricted diet. He has to have this one thing, and I've never understood why. I'm sure somebody's explained it, but why you couldn't have a bowl of cereal and have a steak at night, as long as you had some blood in your diet to supplement everything. I think their body rejects it because he's undead. They can't process, living protein or something like that. It's a thing.
Well, that's like with some of the research I did on personality disorders. It's interesting because a sociopath, depending on their particular makeup, but many of them need to have a supply of people. So it's like social interactions and being able to control people. Like there were so many comparisons. It's crazy when I got into it. And so yeah, it's the same thing, and it's him. Ultimately, he wants blood, but he wants control. Because part of it's, why does he want the blood? Why? How often does he have to feed? And part of that, I just think it's this driving impulse that's so strong. It's been, it's had hold of him for centuries.
Yeah, and you make the comparisons with sociopaths. The thing with the sociopath and the serial killer type is that they don't feel emotions, so they have to learn how to artificially replicate them, act, which might go to be why they are so charismatic, because they're really good actors. They can make you. Their whole job is to make you believe that they're feeling the way they're trying to make you believe they're feeling.
Yeah, they're collectors of people. They collect, they'll just have groups of people around them that they want to get around them and control, but they're also collectors of habits. That's why they're so charming, is they'll actually see people that do something that's effective because it's charming, and because they lack empathy, they can duplicate it. It's just like, oh, they see it as a tactic rather than just a personality trait.
I like the masks that they're wearing here, because they're realistic bat masks. You've got that flattened pig nose on these things, which makes them all a bit ugly. Where normally you would have like these real glamorous kind of masks at a masquerade. They're dressed glamorously, but they've got this little bit of ugly layer on here, which goes to the ugliness beneath. Now, the thing about Dracula's wives, if I recall, they were also vampires.
Yep.
So he's feeding off of them, but they got to feed too.
Right. Yeah, and that's an element that's in my story as well. I got thinking about it. I'm like, he's got to have a pipeline for wives, because it's not just that he's a vampire; it's that he is the king of vampires. So he's got a pipeline. He's got a system for getting, new women into the club, so to speak, and he can feed on them. But that's sort of one level, and then there's, he's got to protect his situation that he has going. So that's where John Harker gets involved. Quincy is one of the three main characters. You can see the three of them, their back of their heads there at the bottom.
Yeah.
And Quincy's sort of one of the island boys. He just is a total screw up. He, lives super impulsively, but he witnesses something that's pretty terrible in his day job, and it becomes this cover-up scenario. So John Harker has to help him because they're going to be brothers-in-laws. So it's more like that John Harker's been sort of dragged into this mess, trying to clean it up, thinking that he has control, but you'll find out how much control he really has.
I was thinking that you've seen the Interview with the Vampire movie, the Tom Cruise one.
Long time ago.
Because his wives, when you become a vampire, you become immortal to a degree. And I'm guessing the fact that he's got to keep this pipeline going, that the older ones get to be too much vampire and therefore not enough blood supply, and then they got to be done away with at some point.
There's an element of discard in this, and some of it is, the wives want, they're all jockeying for position too, and so a lot of the time they'll just seem pretty brainless and kind of going about their day. It's almost like a Stepford Wives kind of scenario, which I saw in the original Dracula novel as well, where they just were kind of off. And so there's some of that, but it's just inevitable around this personality that is Dracula. They are, it's just this sort of fight to be important. So yeah, there are some casualties involved.
Yeah. I thought it was so tragic in that movie when they made a vampire out of I can't remember her name now. The actress who played Mary Jane in the first Spider-Man movie. She was like, 10-year-old girl.
Jeez, why can I not remember her name? That's gonna drive me crazy.
Exactly.
Jay Watson.
Yeah, Mary Jane Watson in that first movie, but because she was going to be 10 forever, and she had been 10 for like decades, and it was driving her insane because she wasn't growing up and she wasn't getting to live life. I scrolled down this far to see if you were going to have the tiers listed on a bigger screen. No, so I will go back up to the top here real quickly and hit these up. You do have a collector's bundle where you can get both the hardcovers, a trading card set, and a T-shirt. And the PDF for $75.
Yep. Yeah, I tried to make it pretty simple and straightforward for this campaign. So it's there's not a lot to it. We do have, there's several things you can add on in the back end, for add-ons. So you can catch up on Downcast. You can get the trading card set. Let's say you don't want to get the collector's bundle. You just want to get one copy of the book and a trading card set. You can do that. So you can customize. But on the front end, it's pretty straightforward. Collector's bundle, $75. We have the PDF this time around, and that's especially for those international backers that don't want to have to deal with shipping. This is a deluxe PDF as well, so we're going to be adding a cover gallery in it, some extras that are not in the standard book, and that's just to sort of sweeten the deal for that $20 PDF.
I was going to say that the $20 PDF is just just a smidge lower than the actual physical copy. So you're making the PDF something that will have things that's unusual. Usually the PDF is like, here's your story. Oh, if you get the book, you get the extras.
Yeah.
You're twisting that on its head there.
Yeah, part of it is just international shipping is such a pain, not just for me, but for backers. So I wanted to have the digital option. At the same time, like most of the book production costs have nothing to do with that physical copy. It's art production. It's getting the letterer paid. It's getting cover artist paid. All of that stuff that you're seeing in the digital version. And so it was a strategy this time. I'm not sure if I would change it or not, but so far, we got 7 backers on it, and I haven't really had any complaints. So
no, not at all. And you can get the hardcover alone. Does it? I'm guessing if you just get the hardcover, it doesn't come with the PDF as an extra. Sometimes that is a thing. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I didn't do it that way this time around. So we'll stay. Maybe it'll be a stretch goal. It's possible I could change that retroactively, but right now it's just the hardcover.
Yeah. Mike Walters remembers the early '90s show Forever Knight, which I loved. Including the Rick Springfield movie Nick Knight, which launched the whole thing, in which whichever vampire brought someone over, the one they brought over would be enthralled to that vampire. And I believe that that does come from traditional vampire lore. They used that in Interview with the Vampire. When Lestat saw that he brought the little girl over, the other vampire brought the little girl over. He's like, "She's yours. You deal with it."
Yeah.
You're her master. Good luck. You can get both the cut. So this is as simple as a campaign gets.
Yeah.
Here are the books. You want the books, get the books, and then everything else is add-on capable after that.
Yeah, you can technically add on anything, so you can make your tier however you want. So that I think has been helpful. Usually I launch a campaign and people are like, "Oh, but what about this? But what about this?" And so the whole first 2 days it's adding extra things. But with Indiegogo having add-ons, it's the greatest. It's so helpful.
I saw the cleverest thing when I was interviewing Kara Nicole, because I talked before about how add-ons were going to make it so that campaigns become just what you got here. Here's the book. Everything else is an add-on. She has a campaign right now where she has a tier that's like, all you're buying is shipping. Put $10 down, you've bought an empty grocery bag.
Yeah.
And now you just go into the add-ons and you just throw on there whatever you want. That's genius. Because now you don't have to pick, maybe the physical thing that you didn't want just to get to the add-ons.
I've seen like Peter Simeti now he'll have one that's just access to add-ons. I think it's $1, but he makes up for it in the shipping on the back end or something like that. So it's really smart. It makes fulfillment a little bit more work because you have to, customize every order, but it's fantastic, especially if you want to catch up on my books or get signed. I didn't realize how big of a problem this would be, but getting signed Alterna versions for people was kind of a pain because they'd go to Alterna and they'd say, hey, I want a signed Downcast #3. But then if they're buying it through Peter has to get me to sign them, ship them back to him, and it becomes this whole thing. So now that's
difficult.
Yeah. So I'm just, if you want signed copies, come to a campaign of mine and I'll sign them for you. So
are these signed?
Yeah, everything, the way I look at it is everything from a crowdfunding campaign should be signed. So I sign everything. It'll be, even on the back end, if you're getting, if you're adding on, one of the downcast trades or, single issues, those will all be signed as well.
All right. Very, very cool. We have reached the top of the hour or very near it. And I don't want to hold you too long because I do want to talk to you after the show just a little bit here.
Okay.
Did that go up? I missed it. I didn't keep the. I'm going to say that I didn't help you at all. That's just because I'm used to that.
It's all good.
But it has been a pleasure having you on the show again, Clint. It's been way too long, and this is just a fun topic to talk about. There's something about monsters and the horrible things they do that attracts us. I talked about why the women would offer themselves to these vampires. I see the same thing at conventions. The vampire fan women would, you can tell they would throw themselves in front of somebody with fangs in a heartbeat. And he looks so young before he doesn't know what happened, Mr. Yanafui.
When losing your hair, man, that's rough.
Oh, well, I have hair. It just doesn't. I have vampire hair. Okay, when I look in the mirror, I have hair. When I show up on camera, it disappears.
Yeah, I was the same way, but then I had I have hair here, but it's like a double island. You can't tell here at all. But so I just was like, I'm gonna start dicking it, and I'm used to it now. Once your head gets tanned, it's not. It looks weird at first, but you get used to it, and then the tanning, just like naturally from you being outside, sometimes it looks so much better. So if you're gonna shave your head, at least give it some time to get some tan.
Yeah, and I had kept mine shaved for years, for like 14 years, and then I grew it back. And brother, it takes forever to get right because you got to go through like a half a year of this dandelion phase where it's like it's not going to lay down. It's just not.
It's not.
Even
training.
now, I've got to paste it. I mean, look how stiff it is. Otherwise, it's just a white man's afro.
Yeah.
Folks in the chat, please check out this campaign. Get over there and take a look at it. The link to this campaign is right below the video. So if you're watching it on replay, it's still there. Click it at any time. Go over there, check it out. Very simple campaign to follow. Hardcover graphic novel at a reasonable price with great art. It's also been pinned to the top of the chat this entire time. So, and of course, we do appreciate you guys showing up, being part of the chat. We don't have a show if you're not here to watch it. And as always, while you're here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.